think it is 7 p.m. and we have all the commissioners here that we're expecting, so I would like to call this annual board meeting for 2024 to order. First item of business is remote attendance, and Meredith will not be attending remotely. So next item is election of officers, and I'd like to turn the chair over to Tim Bartlett,
Sure.
our board secretary, to conduct that election.
It's that time of year, again, where we need to elect officers of the board. That would be the president and vice president. Our first election will take place, or will be for the president's position. Is there a motion to nominate a commissioner for a role of president?
Nominate Michael Walker.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Commissioner Diggs.
Aye.
I abstain.
Aye.
Aye. I think the ayes have it. Michael Walker is the newly elected president of the Board of Commissioners for the Urbana Park District, and he'll proceed with the vice president election.
Well, thank you very much. So are there any nominations for vice president?
Has anyone talked to Meredith?
Has anyone, well, I did talk to Meredith, yes,
Okay.
and she is fine with continuing to be vice president.
I move to
And-
nominate Meredith Blumenthal.
And
as
she
vice
did,
president.
she did also say that if there's some other board member who really wants to do that, she would not have her nose out of joint.
Up to you guys.
I second it.
Okay.
Next time I'll look at it for myself, but I think that I'm down with Meredith.
Okay, because I'd be willing to withdraw that if you would like that position.
Let's see, when am I up for reelection? 2027. Yeah, I am willing to do it, to be vice president.
And I withdraw my motion.
Okay, I move for Cedric to be vice president.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the point? Let's do a roll call, starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 I abstain.
And so Cedric is our new vice president.
All right.
Congratulations, everyone.
There we go. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
We just updated yours, now we gotta.
Next up is appointments. And I would, up for annual appointments tonight are board secretary, the suggestion being Tim Bartlett, assistant secretary Allison Jones, board treasurer Thomas Brown, attorney Matt Deering, board recorder Allison Jones, or the designee of the superintendent of business services, and for the auditing company, our contract with Sikich continues through another 3 years.
Right.
4, yeah. These are all incumbents, so to speak. Is there a motion to approve this slate of appointments?
Did you make that motion?
I did not.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah.
I move to make the following appointments. Board Secretary Tim Bartlett, Assistant Secretary Allison Jones, Board Treasurer Thomas Brown, Attorney Matt Deering, Board Recorder Allison Jones, or designee of the Superintendent of Business Services, and Auditor Sikich.
I second that.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? Hearing none, and a roll call. We'll start with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Action to appoint a commissioner to the Urbana Parks Foundation, which has been ably held by Roger, who I think has done a bang-up job of it.
You want to continue with that?
I do.
All right, then I move to appoint Commissioner Rogers for the Parks Foundation. Sorry, Commissioner Diggs.
Second.
Me and Fred are like that.
I'm so glad.
Sorry.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We should again do a roll call vote. I forget which side we're on. Maybe
I abstain.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and that carries mostly unanimous. With one abstention. And action to appoint commissioners as UPDAC representatives.
We're good with that. Do that again?
Yeah.
So, was that a motion?
I guess I move to appoint Commissioners Hastings and myself, Commissioner Stratton, as UPDAC representatives.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. And again, if we're going to do a roll call vote, we'll start with Cedric.
Do we have to do it in two pieces?
Yeah,
I was
don't
gonna-
abstain.
I was gonna say,
Either don't abstain
yeah.
or do it in two
Yeah, I was gonna
pieces.
say.
Three yeses, so.
Yeah, so,
Do Laura independent and Cedric independent, Thank you. or
yeah, so
don't abstain.
I'll vote yes. Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that, Allison.
And action to appoint a representative to the Urbana TIF Joint Review Board. And as a reminder, I have generally done that along, I mean, both Tim and I have been in the past designated, though we only get one vote as agency.
So I move to appoint Commissioner Walker and Tim Bartlett to the Urbana TIF Joint Review Board.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. And so we have exhausted the agenda for our annual meeting. I will declare that adjourned and declare us open for the regular board meeting for the month of May 2024. And so again, we have item 1, accept agenda. I'm not aware of any suggested changes.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Let's do a roll call again. Start with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Public comment. Okay. Well, all right, there's nobody here to tell us what for. And no new staff introductions, so that takes us to the UPDAC report. And there was a set of minutes from the last meeting included in our packet.
Very lively discussion about Splash and the need for more programming for the middle school and grade school levels. There was quite a bit of discussion about, and great answers, about why this was just happening at Leal, and is it Thomas Paine right now? And that was discussed quite a bit. Why isn't it at Dr. Williams? And, yeah. So there was, the reason is it's like a cycle. So they only do certain grade schools, get on the cycle. So, but I thought it was a really good discussion and lots of compassion, lots of passion about it. So it was really good. And our staff did a super job.
And is financing the major impediment for not doing it in more schools?
I'd say financing and staffing,
And staffing.
Well-
teacher staffing.
Yeah,
Oh.
but if you have more financing, you can probably get more staff.
Yeah, but I think it's complicated with the retirement and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff
no,
too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I think it's a combination of both.
yeah.
But we're still, both the school and us are looking for grants to finance.
Yeah.
So we've got money request in for the community development grants And the school's kind of working with some state leftover ESSER funds that they may reaward to districts that can use the money, because some districts didn't spend the money. So that's kind of where we're at this point. This summer, we'll get through the summer, but the question mark's next school year. So,
It's a national issue. There was a local article, I think, in the Gazette. Didn't anybody see that about, yeah, I
Yep.
hope people caught that. So it's not just here, but it's other places.
Staffing.
Yeah, and it probably would take a lot of money to overcome those. I mean, that's a part of the problem.
and then if the funds don't come to fruition, it's more about what's our future? What do
Yeah.
we do in place of? Right.
The need's not going away.
Right.
Right.
The need's not going away.
I don't want to add and belabor it, but we also pointed out that that time period from out of school to 6 p.m. is the most critical time to program, both for access and transportation purposes, but also alternatives of not having it.
Any other questions or comments on updeck? Then let's move on to our consent agenda. And a little change up in our consent agenda this evening. On tonight's consent agenda are approval of the minutes of the April 2nd study session, the April 9th regular board meeting, and then executive session minutes from January 9, March 19, and April 9, which were sent out in confidential manner for each board member to review. And I presume if you saw problems with any of those executive session minutes, then we want to turn them back in and make a new go on it. The monthly reports, the three departmental monthly reports, namely administration, planning and operations, and recreation. Action to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude. And then approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. Action on resolution 2024-04 to appoint the UPD's Freedom of Information Act officers. Resolution 2024-05 to appoint the UPD Open Meetings Act representatives. Action on resolution 2024-06 to appoint the Urbana Park District ADA coordinators. And lastly, action on the action on annual appointments and assignments. And I think there's a list of additional ones that were included in the board packet. So it's the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Does any commissioner wish to do so? Seeing no sign of that, then is there a motion that we approve the items on the consent agenda in an omnibus fashion?
I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
As moved and seconded, and under the rules of the consent agenda, there's to be no further discussion at this point. Still roll call. We can start with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. And that takes us on then to reports. Financial reports.
Yep. We'll begin with our revenue and expenditures report. This is a report showing all receipts or revenues and expenditures, listing from the prior 12-month period, also the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for 12 months ending April 30th, 2024. Page 1, labeled Sum 1. This is all of our funds excluding the Capital Improvement Fund. Revenues for the period were $14,491,850. Since this is kind of our year-end one, just in comparison, this is an increase in revenues of $878,000 when compared to previous period, and $1,098,000 over April of 2023. Total expenditures, $15,271,265. Again, this is a, this is a decrease over previous period by $806,000. However, it's a huge increase over April of 2023, $2,964,000. Welcome to Health and Wellness.
Yep.
This gives us a deficit for the 12 months of $779,415. Page 2 is sum 2, and this is our,
Though we can note that it's
this is
less of a,
budgeted as such. What?
it's less of a deficit than we had actually budgeted.
Yes.
Yay!
So,
That's a win.
yeah.
Page 2, capital improvement fund by itself. Revenues for 12 months are reflected as $8,987,631. This is an increase of $156,000 over the previous period, and a $6,413,000 increase over April of 2023. Yay, grant money. Expenditures for this fund, $8,886,309. Again, this is an increase of $1,363,000 over the previous period. Thank you, Health and Wellness. It's also a large increase over April of 2023, $5,581,000. So, however, revenues exceed expenditures in the capital improvement fund, resulting in a surplus of $101,322. Page 3, sum 3. This is all funds district-wide, noting that the ending fund balance for the district as a whole, $13,457,936. The remaining summary reports are the individual fund reports for our 3 main working funds, which are general, recreation, and museum. And the last page is for our the report for our UIAC, indoor pool fund. Any questions on the expenditures report? Second set of reports is our treasurer's report, the amount of cash the district has on a single day, April 30th, 2024, listing all 25 funds down the left. Where all of our cash is invested is displayed across the top. Lower right-hand corner, investments on this date total $14,998,096.40.
I think you meant to say 989,000. You said 98.
Did I?
Yeah, it's all right.
Well, thank you for that.
I make mistakes by hundreds of thousands.
The print's awfully small. Yeah, the print's
You're
awfully
just
small.
a junior on
Yeah,
that.
can I borrow your big
Yep.
Cs?
Yep, all in good time.
Oh, page 2. Thanks, Roger. Page 2, the top section lists the amounts that we have that are in interest-bearing accounts, and of that, $14,989,000. $13,176,736 is out in investments at varying rates. And during the month of April, we did have 3 CDs that did mature. So that was over $750,000. All of those are still at rates above 5%. So that's still good news for us. The bottom section lists interfund loans, and there was no activity in April. And page 3 of the treasurer's report, this is the disbursements for the month of April. Vendor payments will match the accounts payable in the consent agenda. And at the bottom right, our total disbursements of funds, which includes payroll and vendors, is $1,890,742. And as you can see in the line above it, 1.3 of that is capital. So I present to you the treasurer's report for audit.
That the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve, I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. Moving on to capital budget report.
On to the capital budget reports. Page 1 is our 2019 ARS bonds capital budget. Here we did see, received $79,000 from the Urbana Parks Foundations as part of the health and wellness donations that they had amassed for us since the last distribution. We also received $7,121 from the state of Illinois from DCEO. This is our 6th reimbursement from them. I think we're, if not passed, we're halfway reimbursed on our $3 million grant. So that's good news. They're reimbursing quickly, which we appreciate. Moving down to the expenditures, we have $660,295 expense to core. This was for construction number 11 and 12 invoices. This is using bond monies and also a bill to MET for $3,980. This is for testing as we move through. Also using bond monies, and then an invoice to Farnsworth for $3,427. This is part of Weaver Planning. There were 2 invoices, number 11 and 12. And then under our grants, again, $37,129 using DCEO grant money. This is applied towards core invoice numbers 11 and 12. And then an invoice, again, to part of a core invoice number 11, $354,367 using city ARPA, and that depletes. We've used all the $2 million that they've forwarded to us. Next page is our 2024 budget. We did receive $1,850 towards tributes and donations, as well as $9,160 sales proceeds for the auction of our 2010 pickup truck. And then just a small expenditure under tributes and donations, $423. It was for a tree and a plaque. 2023 budget, a couple expenditures here under hazard trees, $2,648 for treatments. And down a little further, using Brown Fund, $25,960. This was used towards the concrete pad and the stones for the Meadowbrook interpretive half circle. The 2022 budget, under the first set of expenditures, this is work on the Meadowbrook Playground, Prairie Play. Bonds and OSLAD, we split 50-50. But under bonds, we also had a couple additional expenses for the pickets. So from bonds, $125,190, and from OSLAD, $115,109. That was all towards equipment. Small expenditure, $173. This was to plate our lift truck. Then on 2021 budget, we did receive our annual reimbursement from Champaign Park District for the CUSR ADA annual reimbursement. This is split out over 2 capital budgets. So we've recognized $3,065 on the 2021 budget. Down under expenditures then, we have, under contingency, we paid to Markstar $2,565. This was to pay for the fence posts being replaced at the Family Aquatic Center. And then $1,346 was paid to Access, again, at the Family Aquatic Center. This was to rework the turnstile, so it's an exit only. Uh, 2020, there was no new activity during April. And then 2019 is the remainder of the Champaign Park District annual reimbursement. That one is the $35,960. And then a small expenditure down below under the Crystal Lake improvements, $368 was expense to Fairgram for design number 39. That's all I have. If there are no questions, I will turn it over to Derek and Andy.
Thanks, Tim. Starting with health and wellness, Got some usual construction progress pictures. This is the most recent aerial from Core. It's probably late April, I believe, is when they had sent these in. So this was after the building was fully enclosed. Just as a reminder, this window here is going to be the last thing that actually gets finished enclosed. They will open this up and do a lift into the second floor for any equipment that they need. So that's going to stay plywood for a little while. And this actually has a nice shot of the stormwater basin as well that you can see is fully functional and at this point filled with water.
Doing its job.
So site work's been progressing quite a bit at the site. You can see they've formed the paths that go adjacent to the parking and then up to the building. Those have not been poured yet, they're just formed. And then the permanent electric.
They are today.
Oh, they did today?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. The permanent electric utility is now hooked up to the site as well.
Yesterday.
Did you
And-
just say they poured it today?
Probably yesterday.
Oh, okay. I see it.
All the, what's happening here has been poured too. I
The
was out there
curbs.
doing a tour this morning.
They did those on Saturday.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's good.
Looks like a parking lot now.
Mhm.
All right, well, thank you, Corky.
Sorry.
You didn't bring the pictures.
No, move to the next slide.
This morning.
That's the most updated information. So just kind of moving into the building, it's the look of the gym, painting, finishing the walls in the gym area. You can see the ductwork in above the track. They'll be putting in the lighting there as well shortly. And then just this is a kind of more expanded view of what it looks like currently in the gym. I would note that the equipment for the gym is, so the hoops, the curtains, those are going to be moving to the site for them to start setting up the last week of May. The first week of June is when they're scheduled to actually start attaching everything to the ceiling. So hopefully the next board meeting I have some basketball hoops and stuff to share as well. So this is now going into the east wing. This is the reception area. So you would walk in over here, there'd be a seating area, and then underneath where you can kind of see this half wall here, this would be a reception desk. And then this is that open to the second floor where there's the sculptural piece that will be hanging from the second floor here. And then the stairs have been in place now for a few weeks, so you can get easy access to the second floor. And on the second floor, a lot of the framing work has been ongoing, utilities getting stubbed in. So you can see this is looking, basically if your back was to where the sculpture is going to be, where you would look down to the reception area, and you're looking to the north of the hallway. So this is what will be the entry to the group fitness area. So the wood floor will go in here. This is the storage area for group fitness, single user restroom, elevator, IT room, and then we start getting into the fitness equipment rooms. The first door here, this is almost a shot from if you were standing in that door looking toward the northeast. So this is the room that would have more of the free weights, a little corridor passing through, connecting to the north room, then that would have the machines, with plenty of large windows looking out over the park area. Prairie Play, this is aerial from our team, Keenan and Kayla, which I love this because it gives, if you remember the plan sheet from, the grant work and moving forward with the site plan, this, looks basically, we're right there. So you can see the internal path network basically for the playground. So the parking lot here, pavilion obviously, and here's that large path that then ramps up to the 5 to 12 zone, swings, 2 to 5 zone, zip line, and then they have the path connecting over to the pavilion, which has also seen a lot of work here in the last couple weeks. So this shot on the left is if you were leaving the pavilion heading to the playground. So zip line on the left, 2 to 5 play area on the right. And then this is probably the last portion of the internal path that needs to get completed. This is kind of a critical point. So we're waiting to verify measurements and elevations here. This is in the 5 to 12 playground area. So here's the parking lot off in the distance, and this is where it's going to ramp up. And you can see some of their markings where we're trying to make sure we have this just right, because this is where it's going to meet that
Right, it's like,
that
it pretty
first
much has
deck.
like dock with the
Yeah,
with
so
the
it's got to be
structure
right at the
itself.
exact height and exact location, because everything playground-wise feeds off of that for the measurements and all of our safety zones around that to the curb. So that's the view that will be there.
So like, in regards to that, like, does that kind of change the
Right here.
the process, right? Because like I know generally, like, it seems like the structure themselves is usually the last part that kind of goes up in the playground. So like, is there going to be is part of the structure going to be there, and while like that graded part is coming up, or
No,
is it just,
they have it all under computerized with a CAD drawing where they're going to get the elevations where it's supposed to go, and then that's going to get verified, and then they're going to do the rest of the site work on the bottom with the remaining aggregate, and then drill in where the foundations will go for the posts. The posts themselves have already been marked, so this is just like a verification, more of elevation than anything. And then the playground group is actually planning on being on site in June to start their work as well.
Gotcha.
So,
okay?
but here's
Thank
basically that picture. I was standing probably right about here.
you. Right.
Great shade patterns. Nice to see some shade cast over, at least late afternoon or morning, whichever that is.
So this is the center seating area. So you'd come in from the parking area. There's kind of what I'd call like a plaza here that will have some game tables. And as you move further in, there's some bench seating and shade structure. You can see where that shade structure foundation is going to go, and then the zip lines behind it. And then pavilion, it was quite a drastic look a couple weeks ago on the entire roof system. It was off. But they've had that wood decking underneath now on there, and it looks super nice. We're looking to finalize selection of the shingles here soon so they can finish up the roof and then start working on some of the other finishes around the pavilion. So all new painting, new floor in the restrooms, new concrete poured underneath the pavilion as well. And then this is just kind of a follow-up from last meeting. We were talking about the half circle out at Meadowbrook. This is where we were standing last meeting on our update. And so now the pad's poured. It's got that center integral color with a stain release on it as well. So basically the pad is just waiting for the seating blocks to be finished up and delivered. And so we have our final proof of our names that will go on the blocks. They'll fit on 2 blocks, and we'll leave the remaining blocks empty at this point. But as we all know, future donors will be able to add and fill up the second block, and then start moving on to other blocks down the road in many years as people continue to contribute to the overall program. So once, I think we're just about to finalize the proof for all the names that are going to be engraved. And then I'm hoping Adams in the next couple weeks will be able to get that finished for us. And then they're delivering it and placing it at the site for us as well. So my hope is the next board meeting will have a finished picture. And that's it. That's all pictures I had for today.
It's a lot.
Nice.
Wonderful. It's been fun. When Kathy and I walk in the morning, we see those guys come and checking out the levels and all that sort of thing. It's intriguing, and it actually interferes with our walk, but
I'll let them know.
yeah,
About parade play.
yeah. It's cool to watch it.
It is. I saw Sunday, there was a group of maybe 10 people hanging at the fence, just looking in.
Yeah,
for the
I
lights.
led a history walk at Meadowbrook on
what?
Saturday.
Lights.
We had
Wow.
25 people.
Oh, cool.
And it was funny because we came to Prairie Play, and all of them were grieving the fact that the old Prairie Play was gone. And I explained to them why it was gone and how we had talked with kids and gotten input and everything. And when we left, they were all happy about it, so
Thank you.
Good job.
at least they told me they were.
Good. Information is powerful.
All right.
Well, and it's really nice that the changeover is happening fast.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Not fast enough, but
Well, you know, it takes time.
Anybody that isn't happy, I say, we're going to have 2 zip lines.
Right.
That, one is accessible.
You know,
I'll
you know
remember
what the
that line.
key words are? Handicapped accessible.
The chair one is, people are very excited about it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
I think that the kids are just going to be overjoyed with it.
Oh, they are.
I
They're going to
agree.
love it. They're going to love it.
Yep.
Just watching them at Blair, you know, with the stuff there.
The park is always busy.
Yeah.
Always busy.
okay, moving on then to the executive director's report.
Sure, just some updates. Hope you all took a look at the You Belong Here report. So much good work is being done in that area. Just appreciate the staff and public that are responsive to it. Moving along, want to start out with thanks, as we often do. Just want to remember the Anita Purvis Nature Center staff did a terrific job setting up and hosting us for the sculpture dedication for when Janet Austin was here, and we had a wonderful day and turnout. Also want to recognize the planning and operations staff and the administrative staff that put together the reception for the Crystal Lake Park Bridge rededication. Had a nice turnout, great weather, nice words. I think it was just a great tribute to the collaboration of work between both of our districts. So that was encouraging. Also,
It was nice that Senator Faraci
was.
made it out as well.
sent-
So
sent him a note thanking him. Also, back by popular demand, wanted to mention again, I talked about it last month, but the health and wellness floor signing, we're continuing to get thanks. People are just, everywhere I go, that was the greatest event. We had so much fun, so exciting, we can't wait to come. So I had to repeat it again this month because we had new comments since last month, and a couple of folks that couldn't make it that we tried to squeeze in just to make sure that they were able to, former commissioners, things like that. So appreciate staff effort to help do that. Also want to recognize the Champaign-Urbana Special Rec staff. We had a terrific turnout for the annual awards banquet that was at City View. Just a lot of families. The room was packed. Great time, great food, great fun. Did a really good job. And also just a slight update, wanted to mention, because we had our May board meeting today. The summer camps and the adult day programs are really increasing. They're finding more staff, so we're able to accommodate a lot more people. And again, our hope on the adult program is it could be a full week program. Right now, it's 3 days a week, but we have enough people. If we could continue to find space and staff, that could be a 5-day-a-week operation. So glad for the staff. Moving along, just want to keep us aware there at the IAPD legislative event. We heard of new legislation that's kind of tracking by staff, so we're always concerned with the impacts. Typically, we'll get an update whether things pass or not and what to do about it in the November legal symposium, so we'll stay tuned for that. But we are tracking a few things. And then I think you've probably all received, as commissioners, concerns from IAPD about potential or discussions in Springfield about the OSLAD. Basically cutting it in half, taking half for OSLAD and the other half for other bills. And I think there's a big pushback. You know, it's just as a 30-year veteran, it's getting tiring to hear that each year. It's legislatively protected, so is the law-con funds, and we've had multiple governors that have looked at that and legislators, so we're continuing to say it should be protected. So if you get a chance to send a note to anybody or follow up with IAPD to encourage them to continue that message, we would appreciate it. iParks update, we had our spring quarterly meeting, and I continue just to update us, you know, and we're being told it's a hard insurance market. We have been spending the last 4 years to keep our rates low. Any of our additional fund balance that we could use to offset rate increases, where we could responsibly do so, we did so. And I think what we're hearing is basically all the pools around the country have tried to do that over the last 4 years, certainly through COVID. Probably time we have to reassess. So things we can do positively, certainly continue our great safety team and safety work, keeping workers safe, patrons safe, first line defense. Second, you know, I can only encourage us to continue to look at our inventory of assets and make sure it's complete and it's up to date. We rely on each district to do that. What we're finding and seeing is many districts either don't take the time to update it or may find reasons to not include things to keep their bill lower. But then if there's an incident, something's not covered, that's not good for business. So we're probably going to be moving into either a assisted program where we'll come in and help districts or provide some resource for them to do so, to encourage them to get their resources protected. So we'll continue with that as we get new information. Moving on, staff's very interested in working with the Urbana School District and Urbana Free Library and the Champaign County Forest Preserve on what we can do in Urbana for more community-based programming in the schools. So our goal is to meet with each of those groups, Corky and I and staff, want to find out what we can do at the UPD to offer, I'm going to just say, easy, accessible, low-cost or free programs at school. Encourage our other partners to do that, to really bolster programming and opportunities at school. So I think with the groups we've already talked to, they're very committed. They see it as an opportunity to expand their program base. So I think we're going to see some good improvements over this next year. So stay tuned. Just want to mention, Corky and I and Mark have our first interview. We'll be meeting with Smile Politely to really begin our marketing communications discussion. We want to go back and interview and have a dialogue with all our providers, find out what they're doing, and share kind of our new report information about trying to reach people in a different way, to find out if they're able to be helpful in that way, or do we need to find new vendors, or look at our budgets in different ways, or add to our budget in a different way. We'll also hopefully talk with the News Gazette, Chambana Moms, any other local group, maybe some radio folks, just to, what are we doing currently, who's serving us, what are they doing, are they moving forward with advancements in communications? Love to know. Or do we have to find some different approaches to try to get our message out to people? So, and we're seeing a few communication groups that can help with that. So we'd like to do a thorough analysis and come back and make sure that we're spending the dollars we have wisely, reaching as many people, and then specifically pay attention to our second report that we got and how people would prefer to be communicated to, and see if we can kind of pull that together over this next year in preliminary planning, obviously then dive deeper and get a new approach together. The Student Neighborhood meeting's coming up May 30th. Exciting to work with planning staff on a couple of initiatives. So new format, new style. I think we'll get some better feedback, at least on the park side, and share what we're doing there. Just reporting that the Kickapoo Rail Trail team had the kickoff meeting with the A&E team. Very exciting work. There'll be a lot of work in Vermilion County, Champaign County on the trails, and then the trailhead at Weaver Park will be handled. Certainly we'll oversee that as 3 separate projects, still working with the Forest Preserve as the lead agency. We also had our Baker's Lane kickoff meeting that the city of Urbana is doing on that trail at Weaver Park. So obviously the city's leading that. There was good discussion. Derek, I had to peel off, Andy, before the meeting was over. Anything to report that came up out of that?
Probably the biggest thing is that in the application, the draft alignment showed us crossing the swale and moving into the woods and then coming back out. And when we got there, there was real concern about whether we could do that and not impact the trees. So we think there's enough room to stay on the east side of the swale, which will also help protect the swale. So that was probably the biggest thing. I went out with Matt and Kyle afterwards and reviewed the orientation. I think it's a good orientation.
Good, great. We appreciate that they're working with us. Obviously, it's a kind of a neighborly thing, but to get very important transportation trail and one that will benefit the park. So we're trying to be very sensitive, listening to all the concerns and avoiding sensitive areas, but also taking advantage of opportunities with the park there where we can.
And is it clear that it will be possible to do something different than just a straight shot
I
north
think
to
so.
south? That some meander will be
Design stuff.
included?
Yeah. So on the south end, on school property, it will be on Baker's Lane, and it'll meander onto park property, kind of where we currently have it graded for ball fields. It'll meander back over on the east side of the berm to have a connection with Illinois Street, and then it'll meander along the west side of the tree line with more, kind of gentle meanders, but still meandering some until it gets up to Main Street.
And they're pretty sure the budget will support that?
City's nervous, but by avoiding crossing the swale, we also helped with the budget, so.
Just to remind you, the grants are hard because, you usually ahead of time come up with a number, then you hope it holds, and then there's the bidding process. And then most often, you don't have capital that you can easily find available to top off or finish off, so it's a juggling act. Moving on, any other questions
Derek,
about that?
We'll still be able to kind of protect the sight lines to the wetland from that trail?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
There's, from the south, before you meander behind the berm, there's a nice view of the wetland.
Okay.
And then again, on the north side, it meanders into an area that's why I wanted to have Matt look at it. I was going to make sure we weren't getting into any prairie that he'd be concerned about, and he said that's actually an area where we've had a lot of black locust, and that view from the wetlands nice
Okay,
as well.
good, good.
I guess the last big news, talked to you all, left messages Friday about our wonderful award from Representative Bazinski of, $3.3 million to be matched with some local park dollars and foundation dollars. So some of the things we'll need to do next, get more information. We just heard about the award. Probably there'll be some sort of agreement process to go through, and then would encourage our staff to sit down and start to prioritize. How do we best use that money? How does it spread out? What are we permitted to do? What are we able to do? We shared it with the foundation at the Monday regular meeting, and I think they're already on board to help us, raise some additional money. So I think that could work out really well with the timing, sort of figure out, get planning and design, but then come up with a campaign simultaneously to raise some additional dollars. One thing we know is that the awards cannot be used for aquatics, for pools, and I think our idea of a spray ground probably is in that category. But it was recommended, for example, at the foundation meeting, maybe that's something the foundation could fundraise for as a component that would be high visibility, high desirability. And then so probably another way of spreading out what is eligible, what we find to take a place of that federal dollar, and see if we can pull as much of this together. We're also updating our 5-year capital. It might be a good time to look at that to make sure that things hold our old thinking, and now with this new project and some of the opportunities and impacts, how does that shape out? That's all I had to add. If there's anything else staff could think of in any of that, it's a lot, but that's what we have this month. So we'll keep everyone posted on the award and whatever we find out next. But good news for sure.
And when is it likely to get announced publicly?
I'm not sure. People I know have already told me they've heard, so I don't know if there was some sort of other announcement that went through different levels. I haven't seen it in the
Check with
paper. Has
Rachel.
anybody seen
Seen
it?
it in the paper.
I have not either. Often, we've heard it in the news before we've been contacted in the past. So I wasn't really surprised by that when the mayor called. We'll find out.
Right. Well,
Right. And I would say it's a new approach. It's a brand new, I don't believe we've had portals before where you applied through and then later found out. So might be a new process for us.
all righty. Moving on to the president's report.
Missing a page.
Yeah,
Andy, would you mind pulling up G 2024 board reports?
yeah. But upcoming study session on
Very
June
top.
4, and
And click on May, please. And if it is to the bottom.
President report,
You see
May
it?
14.
Oh, I see it right there. Yep.
so you can see June 4 and June 11. So, and what is the ADA? Oh, that's LTAG, looking at the ADA.
Yes.
That wasn't in
So, and I don't have anything to add to those meeting things. Moving on to liaison reports. The Finance Study Group did meet on the 3rd of May and is scheduled to meet again on the 31st of May. We had some fairly lengthy discussion on the May 3rd meeting. A lot of that regarding the Farnsworth Group and their interest in being more fully, additionally compensated because of the change in the cost of construction of the Health and Wellness Center. And I think there will be ongoing discussions and repercussions from that. There were some updates about the Weaver Prairie Master Plan. And obviously, with this most recent hint of money, that even becomes more important to move forward with the planning in regards to that. So I think the hope at this point is to have a proposed master plan available for action before the end of the summer.
Correct.
We did hear a little bit about the legislative portals, but not that that money had actually come in from one of them. That hadn't happened. And then there was quite a bit on the KRT stuff. I think Tim has pretty well covered that here tonight. An item later on the agenda about the Robin Hall Sculpture Fund, recommending putting that with the foundation. I think it would retain some reference to Robin Hall in that process, but would become a little bit broader scope. And the strong interest in skate park, a pop-up skate park initially, but again, with the kind of funding that's coming through for Weaver and Prairie, may ultimately be one of the things for consideration in that site. So,
And that the Skate Fest is a good training ground for what to anticipate
Or at
for
least
that.
gauge and a way to gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the community-based programming, Tim has covered that already this evening. So, and again, we're meeting again on the 31st of May. Perhaps by then we'll know more about these magic dollars coming.
We hope so.
The policy study group.
As really the only thing for this that I'm aware of appears to be on the agenda for this evening. So
Right.
Michael, I did want to add, we will be having some additional policy discussions, as you know, policy kind of as needed. But at our special rec board meeting today, we also know there's some new policies that are coming through there that we'll probably want to jointly look at. We also have a couple of other policy areas I know Laura's working on.
Security cameras.
We've got a number of things. And then last, I'd remember, we're going to be getting our staff team together to look at our best practices, which is our annual review of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year activities. More than likely, there'll be probably guessing a policy in that needs reviewed or updated. So we may have a good amount of work over the next year in policy coming up.
Exciting.
Yes, and
It's
probably
a-
time it goes in spurts and then probably get some things up to date and
well, I don't know. I think it's a really interesting aspect of all this that it's like you have to stay relevant to the times,
Correct.
and also keep all of the what's necessary for all of your staff
Right.
and for the public. So
right.
policy is something that seemed like it'd be very boring, and it's pretty darn interesting.
Good way to
So-
learn a lot of things. We agree.
And Urbana Parks Foundation.
Foundation met yesterday. We talked about a couple of events that are coming up. Of course, you know about the Barn Bash. It's Friday. Our annual dinner is going to be an annual brunch on June the 29th from 9 to noon. You come for brunch, and then you get put on a bus, and you get bussed around to all the new projects the UPD is dealing with. So that'll be a good time to engage some of our donors, some of our supporters, and members of the foundation as well as the board. We've raised over $200,000 for Prairie Play. That includes the in-kind contribution of Mid-Illinois Construction. So that is going well. It's beyond what our goal was for that. So that doesn't always happen.
Right.
And that's about all we have.
I like that brunch idea and a tour.
Isn't that a great idea? Yeah. I think that was Ellen's,
Well,
Ellen Kurzenoff's idea.
and the UPDAC Planning Study Group, you have not met?
Yeah, we just met.
Oh, you did just meet, okay.
And we came up with some new agenda items. And I think for me, a couple of the real exciting ones were to get UPDAC out of here and go see our new projects. So one is when the Health and Wellness Center is completed, we'll have a meeting there. And then we'll also have another meeting.
We talked about a Prairie Play to
Prairie
visit
Play,
that maybe at
but I
some
couldn't
point.
remember which month. We were kind of.
Yep.
So basically, kind of like you're saying with the foundation, we want to get
Mm-hmm.
UPDAC out and around and see some of the new projects we're working on.
This seems to be a theme because I know, Derek, the Natural Areas Committee is going to be going on a field trip too as well.
Oh, good.
So,
Great.
Post-COVID, we're all ready for field
Yep.
trips.
There you
And new
go.
stuff.
Anything else on UPDAC planning? Moving on to old business then. The only item is anything removed from the consent agenda, and that was nothing, so we're on to new business. Item A, request for approval and revisions to the Personnel Policy Manual.
Just starting out, maybe Laura has something to add. I believe this is the one that related to nepotism was sort of brought to our attention about hiring related family members. And so thought it'd be a good time to check in with Lorna Geiler to see what she would recommend. And she recommended that we change our policy as you see it here tonight. And one of the driving factors is, we have enough built-ins to manage any concerns of nepotism, but the working available pool is definitely shrinking out there. And so finding more ways that we can say yes is very important. So again, I think this policy revision would move us in that direction, allow us to have more flexibility in family members. And then we still currently don't allow members of commissioners or the executive director. Certainly could look at that in the future, but I think staff's recommending this would be a good move in that direction. And we have at least a person in the queue that would benefit, certainly that brought this to our attention and helped us update this policy. Anything else to add?
No, I mean, we certainly employ plenty of relatives, right? Brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever the case may be. And typically that's in a part-time capacity, and typically that's not, much of a concern. But, when we've got the good ones and full-time positions come up and they want to work it, we want to keep them, and don't want to lose them to, well, I can go somewhere else and work full-time. So, it's definitely a win-win, at least in that situation. And as long as we're adhering to the structures of, separation of
Right.
supervision and so forth. So it'll definitely be a win.
So going with that, will language be changed on job application forms or anything like that?
Yeah, we'll have to go back through any updated impacts. I'm not thinking of
I'm
any
not sure
right
there's
now
anything directly in
related to that.
correct.
but-
So I'm not even sure if, in the personnel policy that, when you are hired
Right.
and you sign off acknowledgement of receiving.
Right.
I'm not sure if that paragraph is exactly in that
Right, we'll definitely check.
literature, but if it is, it definitely will get updated.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, the only concern that I have is just that the situation where it's not necessarily said, right? That it's not we may not be aware that two staff members are related, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that kind of aspect of to the best of your knowledge, is there anyone that you're related to that currently works for the Urbana Park District? Something along those lines to help us in those situations, right? Because obviously, like, we want this to happen, but we also don't want the situation where, right, where it's talking about where it's like someone is working directly underneath their own family member. So
Right.
it's just like hard to make sure that that doesn't happen,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
the
Like
checks
that's
and
that's
balances.
pretty much what I'm thinking about.
Sure.
You
I
know?
would think in the interview process, there would be a way, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible that somebody could be hired without no knowledge of their relationship to anybody else, but in a practical sense, probably not.
Right.
So I guess if we had problems, we could go back to our old policy as a way to solve that problem. But,
Right.
you know, I think there's more advantage, you know, but definitely managers and people interviewing, and you kind of have to think about those things.
Yeah, and that's like really that's my only concern. Like I think that I'm all for this. I just
Right.
personally just want
Right.
to make sure that we
Think of
do
everything.
the due diligence
Absolutely.
of having all the
For sure.
everything covered.
Yeah.
So
And
this
making
doesn't
sure-
turn around and bite us in the butt sometime
Absolutely.
down the line.
Right,
And
right.
in an era of blended families, I mean,
Right?
it
Good
things
point.
could happen that you weren't so sure of, and just how formal do you get with it? But
And also, I don't know if this will come up, but my wife and I met at the place where we worked.
I was
and-
literally just about to say
Me-
that,
me
like,
too.
that
Yeah.
there's the language of like,
Yeah.
what happens like if there's an after, right? It's like, oh, these people fall in love or whatever and get married.
It is in our policy.
That is in our
If they
policy.
were to marry, then it's just a,
Right.
Every effort will
Direct
will be
executive
made to
director.
avoid potential conflict. If the employees are of the same division, an attempt will be made to transfer one voluntarily, maybe not voluntarily, or
Yeah.
move on. I mean,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
definitely is in
Good.
our policy.
Good.
And it seems to me to make more sense, like, you can't control the other connection,
Right.
obviously, and shouldn't necessarily, should you be penalized, or however you want to phrase that, but the idea of, if you know that, that's probably something, you might want to
Yeah.
avoid that,
Yeah.
knowing that. It makes sense to us that way, too, so it can be either, both ways.
So we did used to, I mean, I think this is great because there were a lot of Park District kids.
That's what,
And they've
Yeah.
seen what we do and they want to work for
Right,
Urbana.
sure, right.
And they end up over at Champaign and vice versa.
Right.
So I think it'd be great to keep, again, not where they're in supervisory, but we lost, or we have lost, really great
Right.
kids or people for that reason.
well, frankly, we all know Lorna Geiler tends to have a more conservative approach to her practice. I assumed it would have been an easy keep it as it is. But she immediately responded,
Yep.
like, right away, and
Change
just
it.
said, change it, you're not getting the advantages you probably could. So for that, what Laura said, that's one of them.
Well, we're lucky to have a lot of the same people
Right.
season over season,
Right.
and they're going to get to the point where they're
Could be a spot open.
18 and there's a full-time position open, and if
Yep.
me and brother are
Right.
competing, I mean, it's just, this will be good for the district for sure,
Good.
to update that wording.
Well, then I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve revisions to the Personnel Policy Manual effective May 14th, 2024 regarding the employment of immediate family members in benefit-eligible positions.
I second.
that's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all four commissioners voting. Action to approve transfer of the Robin Hall Sculpture Fund to
Oh,
the,
sorry.
to the Urbana Parks Foundation.
Just going to say, I would start out, and maybe Laura could help with that. Just historically, I think you may recall or know at least the origin of the fund when Robin Hall retired as director. I think it was kind of a interest he had to see if there could be a fund created that could help carry supports for future sculpture in the district. And so there was donations made, and some of the funds were used over the years. As it's dwindled down, obviously the time, of recognition and all of that maybe has changed, but our program is very vibrant, and we think there's an advantage to have a named fund of somebody that's at least local and still certainly active with the art community would be an advantage. So we had discussed for a couple of years about relocating that fund out of the district, move it into the foundation, could be invested differently, perhaps grow at a different rate, but more importantly, something we could market and point to attract, or as general art-related funds come in for different things, have a fund that could support public art in detail. So there's more advantages to that. some comparatives. You know, we have the Green Fund that supports scholarships, so it's a named fund. And when you're reporting or promoting it, it's nice to have a name. So that's just an example of how we could potentially grow this fund. So I think that's the staff and the foundation's recommendation.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Right, there's this aspect of, well, I remember one of the things that CCG talked about a lot. Was it CCG was the initial, like, firm that we talked to for the Health and Wellness Steering Committee?
CCS,
CCS,
our
right.
fundraising team.
Right,
Yes.
and one of the things they talked about
Yep.
a lot was your story, right? And so a named fund for an individual is like it's a story that tells itself. You just talk about that individual and their, wishes for the park district and the fund. So it's like it's a step in the right direction. in
And
my
it's
opinion.
it's a great story because it was his vision that launched the whole arts and culture movement in the Park District, so.
absolutely. Well, I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve the funds in the Robin Hall Fund be transferred from the Urbana Park District to the Urbana Parks Foundation in the amount of $3,256.87.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the point? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 4 commissioners present voting. And item C, action to fill a vacancy on AppDeck.
Yes, we have somebody leaving UpDeck, and we know that Myra Stevens had submitted an application last year. We thought that she'd be a very good candidate and would be ideal to fill this vacancy. She is a student that'll be going to the at the University of Illinois. She may want to limit her role based on her future student work, but we thought this would be a good opportunity to give her that experience and opportunity. It's filling a vacancy, so that helps us. And then if there's continued interest and availability, certainly could continue or certainly could come back at another time to serve a full term. So again, tonight's motion is to fill the vacancy with this individual that has expressed interest in serving on UpDeck.
Has she been recently contacted to confirm
Yes,
continuing interest?
yes,
And she attended a meeting.
yes, she came to sit in on a meeting, so.
So I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve the recommendation of the UpDeck Planning Study Group that Myra Stevens be appointed to fill a vacancy of the Urbana Park District Advisory Committee.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. We had no new business. We moved from the consent agenda, so we're on to Roman numeral 8, comments from commissioners.
I just had like a kind of a quick question. It was in regards to the health and wellness plaque. I know that you sent out something like kind of
Yes.
a draft of it.
Yes.
I know that I noted that I wanted to say what you said exactly, but I kind of wanted to bring it up. So hold on, give me just a second to find that email. Right. So you said you recommend that we honor commissioner terms to be consistent for recognition purposes. So I understand that, but I also do kind of feel that it would be important to kind of note Nancy's involvement with the Health and Wellness Center. I just think that specifically because she was a board member kind of at its inception, it's important to note that, but I don't know really kind of, I understand it's like, right, it's like we can't honor every commissioner every time, but I don't know. That's kind of like, I just wanted to
I
put that
thought
out
that
there.
too.
And I don't really know like what is like the most, I assume this would be the most appropriate space to kind of discuss that, so.
Sure. I think, typically you see the elected officials in their term We also thought of that also, and we thought of other commissioners, LaShonda Cunningham, Debbie Rugg, that were very passionate about recreation and having a future. So in light of that and the potential to offend or miss somebody, we thought that would at least be the appropriate way to do it, but certainly we could take direction from the board if you would direct us otherwise. And again, these are the typical, what I call monument plaques. The intent is to sort of capture the who in that moment and give credit. Certainly you can look at it over the years. Probably the relative impact, you know, I'm not sure, it's maybe up to each person, but certainly we would be open to adding more names if that was the desire of the board.
Now, Fred and Nancy made a very significant contribution
Right.
to the building, so that the
Yeah,
track
so
will
They'll be honored and also have a named, you know,
Okay.
featured space for that.
So
They'll
she
be
will,
honored.
she will be
The
honored.
donor,
Okay.
again, we had the same thoughts, but just wanted to respect terms as the way to decide, because you can't argue with the term dates. But then if we wanted to open it up, I would recommend we go back and really think of all the influential people that had a hand, you know, to get us to where we are. So that made it complicated, so that pulled us back. There's other ways to recognize people at the opening. You could have other placards, you know, listing former UPDAC and board members, or whoever the board would like to thank, or community members that have, you know, helped us. We assumed all of that would need to be done. But as far as what goes on the brass plaque, that's kind of the business at hand. We thought it would be best to limit it to the elected officials.
Right,
That way you're in
at
good
the
keeping.
conclusion of the project, because actually, she was on the board when
And see,
things were
that
still
was kind
getting
of
rolling.
my mentality about it. was
I
that,
mean,
like,
it's unusual for a project to span that way, and when coming out a year later, but,
Again, we're open to whatever the board would like to do. Just please be mindful of other people that might not be on the plaque and
Right.
what you would say to them.
yeah, right. And, well, one might ask Nancy herself, but I think given that they will be prominently,
On the could there be something on the designation of the walking track?
But there will be.
Oh, definitely is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That she was a board
Oh.
member,
Yeah.
very instrumental. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, if we put that she was a
Right.
board member,
Sure.
a
Yeah.
commissioner,
Right.
from this date to, I mean, you know, she's.
Well, maybe there's an opportunity to recognize some other people. I'd recommended to Michael another name, you know, a community member that hasn't been addressed yet. And, you know, how do we want to do it? When we visited the Martin Center, they had different placards of influential community members as a
Okay.
separate standalone for their thanks. And that's a way I'd recommended to Michael. We consider at least one person. But there could be a honor board or something.
Well, like we have at the Indoor Aquatic Center.
Have to think about
That-
what the criteria is
that
and
one
who
board up
evaluates
there.
it. You know, and is it additive or subtractive, you know, and how people feel about it. So again, that brought staff back to what's required, what's most appropriate that you can back up with fact, and then proceed with that understanding.
Makes sense.
But could do it however the board would like to do it.
well, I think the idea of doing the commissioners at the conclusion of the project is sort of bulletproof against being pressured in a future circumstance where it might not be so welcomed, if you will.
Right. I
And-
think maybe
and-
the next opportunity would be upon opening. Many thanks to, could be a number of thanks, you know, that get formally circulated and mentioned. There'll be speeches and opportunities to call out. Maybe there's speakers or people that should be stood up and recognized for their contributions. So I think there's a number of ways to, you know, recognize, thank people, and a good idea to, you know, do as broadly as we can on that. We did include the bodies of government, listed them on another plaque, because we did receive ARPA money from the county, and thought that that was a partnership approach that wouldn't be wise to, you know, not
This-
include.
Well, that's one of the exciting things about this project. It's had a lot of hands, and
It really is.
We have an exciting donor board, so everyone who's donated, I think,
That's
should
what I
feel
was
really
thinking.
good about
Yeah.
that. I think we have some ideas for the opening to recognize maybe all donors, because I think there's value in that. So maybe it's something we continue to look at and work at as we go along to make sure everybody that can and should be recognized we find a way to do that. That helps.
Yeah.
You know, we realize it's sensitive. We wanted to work together with the board, probably agree how to proceed collectively, and do it in good taste.
And we could perhaps reach out to Nancy as well. Currently, the Delcomans will be featured in 3 locations.
Right.
They'll have one of the big circles, the bubbles on the donor board, but the biggest, they'll also have aluminum standoff letters on the track that recognizes the Delcomans. And then at the entrance to the track, there'll be a donor plaque as well. So she may actually prefer not to be, but we can certainly talk to her.
Often her first words are usually that, but we certainly know we have a job to do as well, and we have a role to honor people, so we'd like
Makes
to
sense.
do that as long as they're willing. I think we're also looping back with all the checking names, making sure they're comfortable with what's planned, you know, so we'll do our diligence there, but that's what we had recommended for at least the plaque.
Then I appreciate your reasoning. You know, I just wanted to.
Yeah, no.
I just wanted to ask the
Glad
question,
you
you
asked,
know?
because we
So-
spent a lot of time discussing the very same thing and how to
Yeah.
handle it to get to this point tonight, and hope, you know, it would be reasonable and be able to go forward. But if not, we certainly understand the sensitivities.
Any other comments? I just wanted to say what a nice event I thought that floor signing was.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah,
It was wonderful.
You know.
It was really interesting to talk to different people and see what their perspective was and what their memories were
Right.
of previous place. What was the place before Phillips?
Thornburn.
Thornburn.
Yeah,
Right.
several people talked to me about that.
Right.
So it's like,
Um,
I don't know, I wasn't here then, but
That does prompt me to ask a question while we're all together. When Roger asked about Thornburn, you know, when we redid Phillips, we did have the plaque recognizing Thornburn. It's right by the front door as you come in. Does anyone feel any obligation to recognize the Brookings Administrative Center or any other place?
no.
I didn't
No, thank
think
you.
so, but I just thought it might be timely to ask, since it is a public building, and we
It
were
is.
there probably at the grace of the county for more than we had planned to be there.
Yeah, but we're not building on the site.
I agree.
When it crumbled after being given to us.
Well, good to ask.
Crumbling, all right.
Know that we won't have any other obligations related to that type of thing.
Any other comments? Seeing no indication of same, then we've exhausted our agenda, and I will declare us adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.